This is my
Power rankings.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Power rankings.
Wow, you are buff in that first shot.
I'll take it. I've never had shoulders like that.
Jeez.
I've always wanted them, you know. So, all right. So, the power rankings, we're going to go through the top 10 questions. With the draft 2 weeks away, the top 10 questions going into the draft. And these are not strictly draft related. They're all the other things that could happen up to, during, or right after
All right.
the draft.
Let's do it.
Number one. You'll be shocked by this one. Who is going to be the Steelers quarterback? Who is the Steelers QB1? They continue to wait on Aaron Rodgers. I believe there will come a point at which the Steelers will not be able to wait any longer. That point, just logically speaking, probably is under 14 days that we have to the draft. Because they've had all the other candidates, Shedeur, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck. They've spent extra time with all those guys. I would think if you know prior to April 24th, we are getting Aaron Rodgers, that does not eliminate but substantially lowers the chances that you are taking a quarterback at 21. I do believe that they need to get the long-term solution. When they were talking about bringing Justin Fields back, they were still looking for, that was probably going to be a one-year deal, and you're looking for the solution. I don't think that it eliminates anything at 21, but certainly they would like an answer. That is a decision with so many different ripple effects, one of which we'll get to in just a little bit. Number two, question leading into the 2025 NFL Draft. Where does Shedeur Sanders land? Just went through all the different scenarios there. It is one of the biggest mysteries because if you told me Shedeur goes at number 3 to the Giants, I would not be shocked. If you told me Shedeur slides all the way down to the bottom of 1 or the top of 2, I would not be shocked. It is one of the hardest evaluations, and it's not going to be the same on every team's board. Need is a big thing. 4 teams, if you need a quarterback, you got to figure out where you're going to get one. But there's maybe a half dozen teams that's a real threat to draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, let's call it. Which history would suggest if you're not drafting him in the first, you're not getting the starter.
Right.
Not a lot of second, third round picks to work out. There's the Russell Wilsons that pop up every now and then. There's a Drew Brees, somebody taken down there, but there's not a ton of them. Where does Shedeur Sanders land? Huge question going in this draft. Number 3, does Kirk Cousins get traded? At this point, the Falcons have already cruised past the only checkpoint that we have, which was another $10 million portion of his base salary in 2026 already became fully guaranteed. That happened weeks ago. Now, they owe Kirk Cousins $27.5 fully guaranteed this year. Plus, they're on the hook for that $10 million in 26. It's subject to offsets. So they're kind of looking at it as if Kirk Cousins is playing in 2026, he's making over $10 million. We're not going to have to pay that. But $27.5 million this year would make Cousins easily the highest paid number 2 quarterback from go in NFL history. We went through this yesterday, and I would still say, if we're talking about the options with Kirk Cousins, and you list him as he gets traded to the Browns, which would make sense unless they execute Spencer's plan and get a quarterback high. Gets traded to the Steelers in the world where Aaron Rodgers does not go there. Gets traded someplace else. I just don't know where that would be. There's some backup jobs open, but there's not other starter jobs open. Or Kirk Cousins gets nothing and stays on the roster. Of those 4 options, I would say the least likely, or at least in aggregate, there's a less than 50-50 chance that Kirk Cousins goes into next season as a starter. They could hold on to him into camp, see if there's an injury. They could hold on to him for a while. What Kirk Cousins going wire to wire as the Falcons' backup quarterback in 2025, to me seems like the least likely of those scenarios.
Yep.
But Cousins has a no-trade clause. If we get into camp, we get into the season, he might go, you know what? I don't want to move my family again. I don't really want to be dropped into a situation where I don't know the offense or the coaches or the players. I'm going to collect my money. We're not there yet. Kirk wants to play. Let's see if something happens in these next 2 weeks. Number 4, question. Heading into the 2025 draft. Does Trey Hendrickson get traded? Now, a lot of the teams...
He is not happy.
He's made that abundantly clear, and the Bengals keep saying things publicly that make him not happy. A lot of the teams that were in the mix for Trey Hendrickson, and there were 10, 12 teams that checked on it, a lot of those teams then spent money on other pass rushers. So it's getting harder to pay him at this point for other teams, but it's not impossible. There's things that you could do. And it seems as if the Bengals, based on Trey Hendrickson's comments, as well as my understanding, has been that they're not looking to do a big money deal that covers several years for a player who is 30 years old. For Trey Hendrickson, he's going, I led the league in sacks 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. Last year I requested a trade. You didn't do it. You said, come back and play. We'll address the contract this year. I came, I led the league in sacks again. What else is it you want me to do? Again, they've made him offers. They've negotiated. But it has not sounded like they're close to the Bengals at some point. And they had offers. They had at least one firm offer for Trey Hendrickson, from what I understand. They decided not to take it. They have been stuck on, we need a first-round pick for the guy.
What was the offer?
Which is a lot.
What was the offer?
Not quite a first-round pick.
Okay.
So, for a 30-year-old pass rusher who you've got to give a ton of money to.
Right.
I do believe they can get something for him still that's significant. The Bengals don't make many trades. Let's just monitor this one over these next couple of weeks, because this is really a binary outcome here. It's either Trey Hendrickson gets paid in Cincinnati or Trey Hendrickson gets paid somewhere else. Trey Hendrickson, I don't know this, but Trey Hendrickson playing for what he's due right now doesn't sound like that's something that he's particularly interested in. Number 5 question, going into the 2025 NFL Draft. Will we see any other big trades? Usually there's something. Usually something comes out of the woodwork. It's not always as big as, do you remember when Hollywood Brown got traded during the draft a few years ago? Mm-hmm. Most people don't even remember that happened because it happened like 5 minutes after the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown. It was the same draft. It was minutes later.
Yep.
The news broke because the league entered it on what they call the pick line, which is where the networks can see the stuff. And it was just Hollywood Brown's been traded for this first round pick. And everyone's just like, wait, what?
Oh, hold on.
There was no break. There was no breaking news thing. It was just Hollywood Brown's been traded.
Hold on.
It was like, I just remember getting that text being like, what? The what now? But there's usually something that pops up. You have some other unresolved situations. You have certain wide receivers who maybe aren't happy with where they are contract-wise. You've got Jair Alexander, who's been available for some time, the Packers' former Pro Bowl corner. For a long time, he was the highest-paid corner in the game, barely played last season. Could he be on the move? Somebody else trade for somebody at a position that's just not that strong in the draft. Some teams need backup quarterbacks. Could somebody trade for a backup quarterback? There's a lot of different things. Could we get a surprise? That's a big question, and a lot of times those are the ones that kind of bubble up, and you kind of figure out based on what happens in round one and who no longer has their seat in the game of musical chairs. Mm-hmm. Number 6 question going into the draft. Which wide receiver gets taken first? If you do a survey, and I haven't done my final round of calls to teams, so we do still have 2 weeks left here, but I would fairly tell you, if you surveyed all 32 teams, you're going to see those top wide receivers in different orders on a bunch of different boards. Tet McMillan,
yep,
unbelievably talented.
Oh, his tape is crazy.
The pre-draft process maybe not the best for him, but I don't think anybody thought that he was going to be a 4.4 burner. Right. You know, Drake London, that was the talk a couple of years ago, which was, well, he didn't run a 40, you know, he had a hamstring injury or whatever. Well, you know, is he not running because he's going to run slow? Falcons went, we'll take him at number 8.
Yeah,
don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Don't care.
He's been great. He was great last year.
Tet McMillan quite possibly be in that category. Yeah. But Matthew Golden's pre-draft process has been really good. He ran really fast. Emeka Egbuka, another name who
seems like a riser,
could potentially go pretty high in this draft. As I get logged out of my computer because I haven't been out long enough and I don't remember what number 7 is. Number 7! We're at number 7. Let's just flip that graphic. On Tom's Power Rankings, number 7 is how many quarterbacks go in round 1?
Yes.
Should have had a paper copy. Would have helped.
Tom.
How many quarterbacks go in round 1? And again,
more than you think, I think.
What's the over-under right now?
I think the number's 2.5, I saw.
Now, I can't give gambling advice.
Of course not. Why would you?
Nope. But 2.5 that's a pretty good over-under. I think that a lot of the focus has been on where does Shedeur go. I would not be surprised at all. I don't think that 5 quarterbacks go in the first, but I would not be surprised if any of 5 quarterbacks go in the first, including Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, and Jackson Dart. Tom McShay hit the over in his mock draft. We'll get to him in a little bit. Number 8 question going into the draft. Who is the Vikings' other quarterback? This one is a bit more of a thinker because the Vikings have put their full weight behind J.J. McCarthy. When I talked to Kevin O'Connell, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa down at the league meeting, they say he's done everything right. They're extremely excited about him. And at this point, there's no reason to believe he's not going to be the starting quarterback in week 1. But they did make an offer to Sam Darnold. They did try to retain Daniel Jones until it got to the point that they realized Daniel Jones was not really convicted about coming back to Minnesota, where a lot of quarterbacks want to be. So they said, all right, we're pulling the offer. Go enjoy your competition in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. In other words, they wanted to have a veteran quarterback with JJ. Not to beat out JJ, but to take pressure off a guy who didn't take a single rep the whole season because he was recovering from meniscus surgery. Who that second quarterback is, I'm not even calling it the backup, but it's probably the backup. The other quarterback in that room, they're going to add somebody beyond Brett Rippon. Do they do that via trade? Do they do that maybe after the draft signing a veteran? Do they do that through, letting Brett Rippon roll out there? I don't think that's it. But there are different avenues. Could they draft somebody? Could they see value somewhere in the mid-rounds? They don't have a ton of picks, so that's probably not likely. But they need to add another quarterback to their room. Who is that guy going to be? Because no reason to believe it will, but if something goes wrong with J.J. McCarthy, if he gets hurt, that guy's going to have to play. And they've been pretty clear by their actions they want somebody else who, if they had to step in and play, would have experience and be ready to go. Number 9 question going into the draft. Where do the remaining big-name free agents land? There's not a ton of them, besides Aaron Rodgers, who I think that we've covered a significant amount by this point. But there are. Keenan Allen is not of a team.
Right.
Could Keenan Allen go back to the Chargers? Could Keenan Allen fill a void for a team like the 49ers? Could one of those teams that was in the DK Metcalf sweepstakes, such as the Chargers, still get back in on a guy like Keenan Allen? Amari Cooper is still out there. Amari Cooper is another pretty big-name player who's had a lot of productivity in the league. Where does he ultimately end up? Matt Judon does not have a team. The reason these are important questions is because, number one, teams will try to fill their needs a lot of times in the draft, and then if they miss out, well, hey, now we need an edge rusher. Judon, we got Judon dialed up. Number two is because the compensatory pick formula closes the Monday after the draft. So starting that Monday, if you're sitting there, just to take the Vikings, for instance, they got 2 comp picks coming for 2 quarterbacks. Those could be 2 pretty good comp picks. They sign a guy now, it could offset one of those. Now you're down to 1 pick. You wait till the Monday after the draft, doesn't count against the formula. So some of those big name guys that are still sitting out there, Stephon Gilmore is still a free agent at this point. There's a list of, there's probably a dozen guys. Some of those quarterbacks too. Joe Flacco is another one in that category. Drew Lock. That's going to be interesting just to see whether that's during the draft where you can wink, nod, agree, hey, we're going to sign you on Monday, or you actually wait till Monday. That's an interesting question. At number 10, last but not least on this list of the big questions entering the 2025 draft, will Green Bay win the draft?
Ooh.
And I'm not talking about the Packers.
What does that mean?
I'm talking about the city of Green Bay. Yes, there are plenty of Packers fans who are going, does that mean we're finally going to draft a receiver in the first? Probably not. History would suggest no. Definitely possible. They never know. They got a really good young group, though, of wide receivers in that room. I don't necessarily know. They have a habit. They build through the trenches. They draft offensive and defensive linemen. That's the Packers' history in a lot of cases in round 1. I mean the city. Because the moment that it was announced the draft is going to be in Green Bay, and everybody I would talk to, there'd be various grumblings about, Green Bay, what's there to do? It's going to be cold. Do they have the infrastructure? I will tell you, that city has been built up. It has been preparing for bigger events. You're not going to get a Super Bowl there, I don't think. Hard to imagine. The draft is the biggest event you're going to have outside of the 10 Packers game days that you have every year.
Right.
This is a huge moment. The Titletown district that they have built out near the stadium. I'm staying in a hotel that I didn't know existed until I was told I was staying there, and then I Googled and found out it's right there, very close to the stadium. It's a big moment on a big stage. Is the weather going to be great? Probably not.
The extended forecast has 55 and showers on Thursday the 24th.
The best you can hope for is 55 and sunny. Yeah. That is your peak possibility.
Hey, how's the weather out there?
Ain't gonna be 70. It's not going to be bright and sunshining. Although it's a dice roll no matter where. I mean, in Las Vegas, you would have thought late April we're gonna get good weather. You remember the weather in Las Vegas? The day of the draft, during the day,
super windy, right?
They were making contingency plans about moving the draft indoors and conducting it with, I think it was a guy who was going to be in one of the, in the Caesars Hotel, who they were just going to call him, and he was just going to enter the picks. But it was going to all be, it wasn't going to be Roger walking out on the stage. Ooh. They were going to have to change. So you never know.
That would have been bad. It
was cold last year in Detroit, but still a great draft. I'm excited as somebody who lived in Green Bay for 3 years, who enjoys visiting there. I bumped into Ed Policy, the incoming president and CEO of the Packers. I know how excited the organization, but the city is. It's a city of 100,000 people that gets a chance to shine in very limited capacities. There's very limited types of opportunities that you get. And this is it for Green Bay.
And there's house bars.
There's a lot of bars. Some good dinner options, too. I'm not going to say what they are, not because I don't want to give them free publicity, but because I don't want them to be overrun when I'm eating there. I have all my reservations made. I will choose. Listen, I haven't decided yet what I'm going to eat night one of the draft, because I'll be on TV all day right up until the draft. I usually get back to the room, watch it there, eat something. Never a bigger mistake than when I went to Gates Barbecue. Was it your Gates or no? It was Arthur Bryant. Bryant before the Kansas City draft, and I got the $45 thing that's every meat you can imagine, and a pound of fries. By about the sixth pick, I'm sweating. That was a long night.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.